Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there. Hey, how you doing? Hopefully you're doing well, and you're ready for some Computer America. Today on the program, a full hour of computer and technology news, and yeah, hey, we wouldn't have it any other way. But with that being said, everyone, welcome to the show. First things first, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything for today's show, be it any links, videos, articles, anything that we talk about here today can be found in one place. And on top of that, be sure to check out some of the other content that we have there. We just put up a new review of the Coleman faux suede tote 17-inch, or made for 17-inch laptops. And you know, it was a great product, and really our first product that we would really recommend for, you know, Mother's Day gifts and things like that. So happy that we have that up, and everyone go give that a little looky-loo. And in the meantime, follow us on social media, check out the video portion. All that being said, everyone, we're just going to go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. Oh, and by the way, if you missed yesterday's show, highly encourage you to go back and check that out. If you are into video games at any point, hey, yesterday's Gamer Tuesday was a lot of fun. So check that out as well. But everyone, computer and technology news, a lot of wide-ranging articles. And hey, why don't we go ahead and get started? So here we go. Okay, I think the first one that we're going to do, and I think this happened yesterday or this morning. I need to probably catch up on it myself, but you may have heard about it. It's been covered in the news and so on and so forth. And it has to do with the idea of, Uber drivers. Uber and Lyft drivers, I should say, ride-sharing services and their employees, quote-unquote, even though they are not treated like employees. In fact, they are treated rather poorly. You may think that, hey, you're earning pretty good money when you consider that you're getting, somewhere above minimum wage, and in a lot of places you think you're doing well. But then you realize that after the cost of insurance, car gas, just the wear and tear on your car, you're not getting any of that back. A lot of factors go into more than just the upfront dollar cost, and a lot of these drivers are consistently earning less and less. And then on top of that, as the company moves forward and as they are about to release they're about to go public. Their initial public offering, their IPO, ahead of that, they want to make sure that they are as tight and profitable as possible, because when they open their books and they have to show investors and the stock market, they have to show everyone that, hey, not only are we making money, but we're making really, really good money. And it seems like they're tightening the purse strings everywhere they possibly can. Now, of course, the part that everyone may know, that led to a massive demonstration of people who have gone and deactivated their accounts or not driven between the hours of 7 and 9 in the morning in a lot of major cities. I think I read an article somewhere that said about 74% of people out there would be affected by this form of protest. Now, I didn't follow up on that. Obviously this either happened this morning or yesterday morning, and it's either went really, really well and they got everyone's attention, or some people saw the possibility of surge pricing, and because there's no official any kind of union or anything to really kind of mandate that you don't use this is kind of spreading by word of mouth. Hey, if there's a lot of people looking for rides and a lot of people not using it, up comes the surge pricing, and you as the rider would be paying 2, 3, 4 times what you normally would, and the few people who decide I really don't want to get into the politics of all this, I just want to drive for Uber or Lyft, they'd be earning a lot of money. So I'm actually quite curious to see what the actual reaction was. But as I said before, this is all ahead of their IPO, where they are expected to be valued at over $90 billion. And by they, I mean Uber. I know I've been saying Uber and Lyft, but Uber is about to file their initial public offering. And hey, this is going to be big. So with that being said, one early investor, who's of course Jeff Bezos, has a $3 million stake in the company, estimated to now be worth about $400 million. Think about that. That is the epitome of tech and culture around the U.S. lately, where if you can get in early, if you can get in on like the initial investing phase, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest people in the world, turned a $3 million investment in the company into a $400 million investment. That's just crazy, the amount of growth that these tech companies tend to have. So going ahead, they said that Uber's current CEO could make at least $100 million from stock options on top of his salary already, and on top of his $45 million salary in 2018. So with that being said, everyone's making money at the top. Everyone who invested early, the owners of the company, the corporate side is doing amazing. That seems to really be the gist of it. Now, drivers, the people who make this actually possible, who are the lifeblood of the service, because it's not even so much the people who pay for rides, but it's the people who substitute the place of employees and actually drive people around. They're feeling increasingly poor, angry, and powerless, saying that they charge wages that have been cut ahead of the IPO, and that bonuses offered to long-term drivers and of course Uber and Lyft are inadequate. So obviously they would incentivize you to use the app frequently and for a long time, but even those are pretty abysmal. Now, here we go. They actually have a couple of anecdotes here in this article about long-term drivers of 5 year, 1 year, and over. Let's just kind of go to. Let's just go to each story and kind of pick out some of the quotes here. This first one was from Hrant Gorgon, and he says that, quote, "What I feel Uber does is like if you throw a seed to the birds and bring them to the cage and then close the cage on them. Uber made it seem so good. I purchased a hybrid car and then started little by little reducing the wages. This month, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my mortgage." Obviously, when you work for someone and really in the workplace, cutbacks are, wage cuts are very rare. And if they do happen, they usually happen, very explicitly. It's usually once a year kind of thing if the company is struggling, and it's usually a last resort. Here's the thing though. Uber and Lyft, as we've stated with their IPO, they're never doing better. They're worth $90 billion as a company. Doesn't mean that they have $90 billion sitting around, but that means that as a company, their value has been increasing exponentially. One of the ways that they do that, apparently, and that's going through, these anecdotes from, Uber drivers all over the country, they're increasing their bottom line, so it makes them more attractive to investors. But then the people who are actually working for them and who you would hope would actually be earning a living if they really invest in Uber and Lyft, and by invest, I mean their time, their vehicles, their energy, really try to make a career of this company. You'd hope that their wages would go up over time, as you would see every other industry, as you would see the people at the very top, the corporate side and the investors, all of them are getting very, very good returns on their money. But the people at the bottom end, they are losing money because that's the best way that everyone else gains it. They have another one, Mr. Ali Razak, who is a full-time Uber driver for 5 years, saying that, quote, once Uber got control of the market, they changed in the worst ways. The only thing drivers are asking for is fair pay. Uber is doing everything except fair pay. End quote. And what he's saying is that when he first started, Razak made 80% of the fees from his fare, with 20% going to Uber. Now, they are charging anything they want. Some of my fares, they charge more than 60% of the rider fare. His pay has decreased from about $1,500 a week, which, hey, that's really good pay, $1,500 a week after expenses 5 years ago, to between $300 and $600 a week, while often working more hours. So that's a huge decline. And again, if you didn't catch those numbers, because there were a lot of numbers in there, at the beginning, he was earning 80-20. Where he was earning 80% of the fare, the Uber was earning 20%. Now it's sometimes up to 40% his, 60% Uber, where the ride-sharing company is now taking the lion's share of the profits earned from these. So he dismissed the bonus being offered by Uber drivers from the IPO. With over 8,000 trips, Razak has received will receive a $500 bonus, not even a week's pay, for working from this, from working for this company. And so, if you didn't catch the very beginning of this article, Jeff Bezos, who invested $3 million, way back when it began, and will at least have shares after the IPO. He's going to earn from $3 million, he's going to earn $400 million. And then like the CEO is earning $45 million on top of that, on top of a huge, $8 million bonus or something like that. And then the riders are getting $500. And that's over 8,000 trips. I mean, that's a lot of driving. I don't think I've even, maybe in my entire life, but 8,000 trips. This person over 5 years has really dedicated themselves to the company, and they are getting nothing in return. Let's go to, and by the way, this article is full of, a bunch of different experiences. We'll do one more, and then we'll go ahead and kind of wrap this one up. But let's go ahead and skip on down to Peter, and it's this gentleman here on the screen if you're watching the video portion, who's been an Uber driver for just a year. So you would think that his experience wouldn't change that much in the course of a single year. But, quote, I pretty much have the lowest cost of living you can imagine in Los Angeles. I used to be able to afford that. And this is Peter, who didn't want his last name being used. He didn't want his last name used, fearing retribution from Uber. Quote, recently Uber cut rates per mile by 25%. Now I'm having to work longer and longer hours to make rent. Peter currently lives in a small room in a house with 8 other people. He used to have spare money left over at the end of the month, but says that that's gone after rate cuts for drivers. Peter makes $1,200 a month after expenses, despite having to work a 50 to 60 hour week. He's put about 30,000 miles on his car in the past year, noting that mileage will probably increase as he's having to drive more to make the same amount of money. So obviously, he's saying that he's earning less money. There's no boss that you can talk to, and you weren't told about it. You just see your income lower today, and you have to deal with it. And really, that's the point of the protest that happened. And really, hey, an Uber representative told The Guardian, who's again the author of this article, Quote, drivers are the heart of our service. We can't succeed without them. And thousands of people come into work at Uber every day focused on how to make their experience better on and off the road. Whether it's more consistent earnings, stronger insurance protections, or fully funded four-year degrees for drivers or their families, we'll continue working to improve the experience for and with drivers. Uber, if you're listening, good luck on your IPO. Hope that you really hit the ground running with that. That's going to be great and all, but the best way to keep your drivers happy is your very first point, and you even pointed out consistent earnings. You can say that, hey, there's more ride sharing going on, so everyone should be making more money, yada, yada, yada. But when you really factor it down, a lot of these people are making below minimum wage. They're just working more and more hours, so it really doesn't seem like it. When someone makes $1,500 a week, that's great and all, but when you factor in the cost of insurance and you factor in how many hours that gentleman probably had to drive, the wear and tear on his car, so on and so forth, the cost of insurance, I mean, hey, it's not as glamorous as you first think. But they're putting the time in, they're putting the energy in, and if you really want to see this industry grow, Uber really does kind of have a monopoly on the service here. But that doesn't mean that you can't kill it yourself. So everyone, there you go. I just wanted to get that one out of the way because I'm sure a lot of you have seen the protests that were starting up around around Uber and their IPO. And again, I hope that the huge influx of cash that they are going to see really does happen to make it all the way down to the drivers and make their experience better. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and continue on. Okay, here's an article that or a story that we've been following for a little while now. I have not seen any updates for about 2 months, so I'm excited to get into this one. Everyone, check it out. Huawei says detained CFO to seek extradition stay, rights violated. So if you didn't know this, Huawei, they come up every now and again. It's a very complicated story with the U.S. and China, trade relations, Iranian sanctions with IBM, if you didn't catch that. And now the daughter of the founder of the company, who happens to be the company's chief financial officer, has been detained in Canada with potentially being extradited to the United States for violating sanctions. It's a whole mess. There's a lot of moving parts here. So let's see where at least this particular part seems to be at. Oh, wait, and there we go. Okay, so with that being said, Meng Wanzhou, she's 47, the daughter of Huawei Technologies Co. Ltd's billionaire founder, was arrested at Vancouver's airport in December on a U.S. warrant, and of course, and is fighting extradition on fraud charges that she misled global banks about Huawei's relationship with a company operating in Iran. Now, the Huawei statement did not name any bank, but Meng is accused by the United States of conspiring to defraud HSBC Holdings PLC. I'm not an expert on banks, and I probably should be at this point, but no offense, HSBC and Deutsche Bank, those two particular entities seem to come up whenever money laundering or any kind of weird evasion kind of happens. Deutsche Bank and HSBC, those two hold so many secrets. I don't know how they do it, but I digress. They said that and other banks by misrepresenting Huawei's relationship with Skycom Tech Co. Ltd. Now, her lawyers on Wednesday also said that comments by the U.S. President Donald Trump, who told Reuters the charges against Meng could be dropped if that would help China trade talks, disqualify the United States from pursuing the case further in Canadian courts, which is a big deal. when the president of the United States, who you are currently having a trade dispute with, and Huawei and China, big players with one another. Huawei is like the largest cell phone manufacturer, smartphone manufacturer in China. And yeah, when the president is trying to use your court case as leverage in trade negotiations, there's not a lot of fairness that can happen at that point. There's a lot of carrots and sticks and just general tomfoolery. Now, her defense also said that Meng's rights were being violated upon her arrest last December, and that's when we last heard about it. The initial focus on Wednesday's hearing before Justice Heather Holmes of the British Columbia Supreme Court was on procedural matters, including a request for Meng to move to a larger second residence she owns while under house arrest in Vancouver. So, yeah, under house arrest, but she wants to move to her larger house in Vancouver. Man, of course, innocent until proven guilty, but wow, that's a lot of money. Now, in recent weeks, China has upped the pressure on Canada and halted Canadian canola imports and suspended the permits of 2 major pork producers. Chinese police also detained 2 Canadian citizens after Meng's arrest. I don't know if those are in any way related, but you can't disqualify it. So, let's see. She arrived in court wearing an elegant full-length black and gray weave patterned dress with the ankle monitor prominently visible. She said that she was released from jail in December on $10 million, Canadian dollar bail, or about $7.5 million US, and must wear a GPS tracker, an ankle bracelet, and pay for security guards. She has been living at her Vancouver home, which is valued at about $5 million. That is a plush jail cell. But at the same time, still very much a jail cell. So that's the update. She showed up to court. You know, she's on house arrest. She has been for a couple months now. What happens next really is a question in the Canadian courts. And if she gets extradited to the U.S., she'll have a whole another legal battle, a whole additional legal battle with the United States courts. I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing. Obviously, like I said, there's a lot of convoluted details about this. And I've said it on the show before, I'll say it again. I really do think that this has a lot to do with trade negotiations happening between the U.S. and China. And this is just yet another bargaining chip. Unfortunately, it comes at the expense of people's lives, free time, and freedom. But, yeah, I mean, hey, everyone has to have their day in court. Looking forward to seeing what happens with that one. Now, everyone, we're going to go ahead. We have time to get into yet another story. How about, that's all policy and politics and, stuff behind the scenes. Why don't we go ahead and talk about some hardware? And check this out. We mentioned it before, but we have some new details, and I really, really like talking about hardware. But check this one out. Ars Technica, Cray, and you may know Cray. They make great computer systems, like a lot of the supercomputers and research facilities and things like that. Anywho, Cray and AMD are to build a 1.5 exaflop supercomputer for the U.S. government. Yeah, you are not mistaken. Only about, I want to say it was only like a month or two ago, we actually heard of the first exaflop computer. And just a couple of months later, we are already talking about the first 1.5 exaflop computer. Exa, by the way, if you don't know what that is past a petaflop. And flop, floating point operations per second. And so those are like simultaneous equations that it can run, or simultaneous, what's the word here? Whatever, I'm sure we'll get into the article. But the point is, this thing's going to be wicked fast. AMD and Cray have announced that they're building Frontier, if you wanted to put a name to the supercomputer, a new supercomputer for the Department of Energy at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. I really, really, really want to visit Oak Ridge National Laboratory. I don't know if they do tours or something like that, but they have all the best toys there, and I really want to go visit that. Now, the goal is to deliver a system that can perform 1.5 exaflops, And if you needed to put a number on it, if you're watching the video portion, if not, 1.5 times 10 to the 18th power. So that's 18 zeros. A million has 9 zeros. So this is a million operations per second. This thing is crazy fast. By way of comparison, a single NVIDIA RTX 2080 GPU manages about 14 teraflops to compute performance with 32-bit numbers. Frontier will achieve 100,000 times more. Yeah, and really the cool part is like, it's not even just that it's 100 times more, 100,000 times more. It's that you can put that to one task. Like, it can do all that at once or simultaneously. This thing is going to be very impressive. Now, the fastest supercomputer in the top 500 list weighs in at 200 petaflops or 0.2 exaflops. And as things stand, it'll take the top 160 machines on the list to match Frontier's performance. And really, that's kind of the joy of supercomputers. That's the joy of the thing that we will never actually be using, in our day-to-day lives. But if you look at the natural progression of technology, and every 18 months it doubles, or whatever Moore's law happens to be nowadays, the top 160 supercomputers in the world will equal the computing power of the new number one when this thing is finally built. Technology advances and advances quickly. Now, Frontier will use custom version of AMD's EPYC processors, matched with 4 GPUs, all connected using AMD's Infinity Fabric. Between nodes, Cray's Slingshot Interconnect will be used, which has transfer speeds up to 200 gigabytes per second. The GPUs will have their own stacked high bandwidth memory, all of it housed in 100 cabinets, taking up about 7,300 square feet of floor space, with power consumption somewhere to be 30 to 40 megawatts. That's crazy. And at the same time, really, just taking up 100 cabinets, 100 of those vertical, computing cabinets. That's actually not bad at all. Only 7,300 square feet. Very impressive. Now, the plan is for Frontier to be delivered in 2021 at the cost of about $500 million for the hardware and $100 million for research and development. It should be the fastest supercomputer in the world, and it will be the US government's second exaflop capable system, with the first being Aurora, which was, of course, announced being built by Intel Xeon SP processors and Intel Xe GPUs. So if you think, good gift for AMD, definitely. This is amazing for AMD. This is just what you want. But Intel is offering much of the same thing. And I think the Intel one should be out about a year earlier. So this is really, really cool. Now, the supercomputers will be made available to academics to run a wide range of simulation and experiments. The Radeon Instinct GPU include hardware dedicated to machine learning workloads, and it's likely the Frontier will be used for this kind of task in addition to the more conventional weather and nuclear weapon simulations. Supercomputers, if you don't know what they're for weather simulations, they're for scientific experiments, they're for, as I said, nuclear weapon simulations, just things that you really need to be able to compute, like a realistic reaction of every atom, of every particle, and just really get down to that nitty-gritty detail. Something that would make your computer just lock up instantly. But when you build these $500 million systems, they can do what nothing else can. And whichever company happens to have them, for about 5 or 6 years, in all honesty, the best supercomputers in the world were from China. China had them, and then about a little bit before that, it went US and China. Sometimes Germany would come up. But whichever country, like, it's not just kind of a prominence thing. We have the best supercomputer. It's a little bit of a reputation kind of thing, but it allows your researchers and your academics to do better, faster research and development in a lot of different fields. And whether that's military applications, whether that's pharmaceutical applications, it makes you an industry leader. So that's why we really we should be really proud that, hey, the U.S. government is contracting these things. This is super important. And also, hey, Computer America, America's going to have the best computers. What can I say? We can be a little bit proud of that. Okay, everyone. There's that one. Why don't we go ahead and actually, man, I don't even have time before the break. Okay, when we come back, we have a lot more articles. Computer and technology news continues on. And when we come back, we're going to talk about RobbinHood, not the storybook character, but rather RobbinHood, the ransomware that has taken down Baltimore City government network. That's right. A lot of 911 systems have been hit, and most of the city's networks are down. We're going to talk about Baltimore City, what's happening there, how it happened, and hey, if they're going to be able to get out of it. Everyone, stay tuned. More Computer America right after this. We'll be right back.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And everyone, hey, hopefully you're doing well. If you missed any part of the show so far, you can, of course, check out the podcast wherever podcasts are heard. Search Computer America, and we should pop right up. But even beyond that, everyone, check out the website. Once again, we have a new review up of the Coleman, it's the Coleman faux suede laptop carrying case, carrying bag for 17-inch laptops, as big as they make laptops. This thing has your back, and really it's, one of the first products that we have up on our site that we have reviewed that we would highly recommend for Mother's Day. So give that a read, give that a check, check that out about halfway down the page and you can see it there, or hey, follow us on social media and you'll see it there as well. Now, everyone, we continue on. We are doing computer and technology news. Just finished talking about the new Frontier supercomputer, the 1.5 Exaflop computer that should be opening in about 2020, or at least I should say be finished by 2021. And now we continue on to this particular article about RobbinHood, where unfortunately the city of Baltimore is having a bit of a headache today. And that's putting it lightly, because I'm sure a lot of you remember what happened in Atlanta it's not a good thing when your city's computer systems are completely locked down thanks to ransomware. We also saw the same thing in Colorado, I believe, but they actually handled it very, very well, where they were able to turn off computers, separate the infected ones from the network, and keep it contained primarily to only a few vital systems. But let's talk about this. As of 9 a.m. today, email and other services remaining offline. And this happened, on May 7th by a ransomware attack. So it's been going on overnight. Police, fire, and emergency response systems have not been affected by the attack, but nearly every other department of the city has been affected. Calls to the city's Office of Information Technology are being answered by a recording stating, quote, "We are aware that the systems are currently down. We are working to resolve the issue as quickly as possible." Not good. So Lester Davis said that the attack was similar to one that hit Greenville, North Carolina in April. So this usually tends to be the case, that whenever these massive hits happen, it's not something new or innovative or crazy, anything that we've never seen before, but rather it's a small tweak to an existing threat. Now, Baltimore Chief Information Officer Frank Johnson confirmed in a press conference today that the malware was the very aggressive RobbinHood ransomware that the FBI had identified as a fairly new variant of the malware. Several new variants of RobbinHood have emerged over the past months, because really it doesn't take that much to turn it into a completely new threat. Now, let's see. So let's go ahead and get this paragraph in just real quick. Security researcher who recently reverse engineered a sample of RobbinHood told Ars that the malware appears to target only files on a single system and does not spread through network shares. Quote, "It is believed to spread directly to the individual machines via PSEXEC or executables and or domain controller compromise. The reason behind it is that the malware itself does not have any network spreading capabilities and is meant to be deployed for each machine individually." Makes sense. That would mean that the attacker would need to have already gained administrative level access to a system on the network due to the way the ransomware interacts with the directory. So they already compromised at a very high, or I should say a very low level of the systems. They already had almost full access to a particular system, and then they were able to put on this particular level of malware. And then, of course, though, once you have that level of access and something that can ingrain itself so deeply, it's very hard to get it off without a complete wipe. Now, they said that in addition to requiring execution on each individual targeted machine, RobbinHood also requires that a public RSA key already be present on the target computer in order to begin encryption of the files. This means that the attacker likely deploys it in multiple steps, from obtaining access to the network in question, moving laterally to obtain administrative privileges for a domain controller, deploy and save the RSA key and ransomware on each machine, and then execute it. So that means that they had access to every single machine that they were able to infect with this malware. Now, before it begins encryption, RobbinHood malware shuts down all connections to the shared network with a command, and then runs through 181 Windows services and shutdown commands, including the disabling of multiple malware protection tools, backup agents, and email, database, and internet infrastructure server. That string of commands, which starts with an attempt to shut down the Kaspersky's AVP agents, would create a lot of noise on any management monitoring system event logs. Okay, a lot there, but essentially what that means is that because they had such a low level of access, or I should say high level of access, they were able to get around all of the anti-malware that happened to be on the computer, any kind of backups, any kind of protective tools, all of that would be disabled immediately. And then this would be implemented. So, hey, not the easiest thing in the world. to of course get rid of. In a press conference, Baltimore's new mayor said that it was uncertain how long the city system would be online. Quote, "There is a backup system with the IT department, but we can't just go and restore because we don't know how far back the virus goes. So I don't want people to think Baltimore doesn't have a backup," which is great. Everyone, take a lesson from Baltimore. Backup, backup, backup. But now it's a problem, or at least a question of how far back do we have to roll the system back. So in the meantime, city employees would have to switch to doing things manually. If the city workers are idle for a substantial amount of time, he might ask them for help to help clean up the city. I don't think a lot of administrative people would really take too kindly to picking up litter, but hey, that's their prerogative. There you go, everyone. Baltimore, I hope that you get that you get things back up and running here shortly. But hey, it seems like attacking infrastructure and attacking cities, be it Atlanta, Colorado, be it Baltimore, or Greenville, South Carolina, any of these cities could be hit, and ransomware, it's a very simple, effective, and unfortunately easy way to get money. We are going to be seeing more of this. Now, everyone, there you go. Let's go ahead, swap stories, and switch on over to how about this one. Hacker to hacker. Actually, we have 2 more hacking stories, so might as well get them out of the way. Everyone, hackers stole cash from about 100 Amazon sellers in serious fraud. That's right, not even Amazon. You can kind of expect it from Baltimore. Have you ever been there? Yeah, but Baltimore has it coming. But Amazon, no, not our favorite company. Amazon and its sellers are now believed to be the victim of a substantial fraud campaign. Saying a newly public legal filing obtained by Bloomberg revealed that Amazon reported a serious campaign that compromised the accounts of nearly 100 sellers between May and October 2018, draining them of cash earned through loans and sales. While most details of the heist weren't specified, the internet giant understood that the intruders changed account details at Barclays and Prepay Technologies. So, of course, that means that the hackers were able to infiltrate the payment processing side of the whole transaction. Attorneys had asked a judge to allow searches of account statements at Barclays and Prepay in hopes of investigating the fraud, tracking down funds, and bringing the fraud to an end. Amazon didn't comment on the particulars of the case, but did say that these kinds of incidents can happen through phishing scams that trick victims into handing over their login credentials. If that's the case here, then there's only so much that the shopping giant can do. It can't prevent partners from clicking suspicious links in their emails. The fraud may serve mostly as a reminder to keep your account locked down and to stay responsible. Really, that's very unsatisfying, but you kind of have to give it to Amazon here. If it happened on the payment side, offsite, not through their services, and they're able to change where the money went after it left the Amazon store, there's really not much that Amazon should be responsible for. This is more on the buyers, and this is more on the sellers, keeping their accounts secure and two-factor authentication, so on and so forth. Everyone, check your statements and check them on a regular basis. Catch fraud before it goes on for too long. Really seems to be the gist here. Now, okay, one more hacking story, just real quick. Don't want to get too far into this because, hey, cryptocurrency. I don't think Bitcoin. I don't know how much people really like hearing about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, but I do want to say this. One of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges, which is called Binance, instead of finance, Binance with a B, announced that it had lost 7,000 Bitcoins. And if you're keeping up with today's prices, which actually, let's go ahead and check out real quick the price of Bitcoin, turns out to be about $5,896. Honestly, Bitcoin's doing pretty well lately. It's up from about 3,000 a couple months ago. Now we are looking at gaining about 40% of its overall price. So, well, getting back about 40% of its price, and of course, very, very far off from its from its $20,000 high, but it's doing well. Point is, $40 million in a large-scale security breach. The company said that hackers accessed a hot wallet that contained about 2% of its total Bitcoin holdings. They used phishing and viruses to obtain user data and managed to bypass security checks, preventing Binance from blocking the transaction. The company said that no user funds will be affected and has an emergency fund that will cover the incident in full. I mean, that's exactly what you want to hear. When a bank is compromised, when a bank loses money, you don't want to say that, oh, some people in Maryland had their bank accounts compromised, therefore the people in Maryland are unfortunately without money. No, you want the bank itself to take full responsibility. Great on Binance for, being the one to do that. So, of course, Binance was unable to block the transaction, but it triggered an alarm that the company shut down all deposits and withdrawals, and while trading can continue, all transactions will reportedly take a week to complete. And the point of that is that they get to shut down or approve or not approve any transactions that look suspicious. So there you go. While we beg for your understanding in this difficult situation, we will continue to enable trading so that you may adjust your position if you wish. Please also understand that the hackers may still control certain user accounts and may use those to influence prices in the meantime. So there you go. We're not going to get into the history of exchanges, but this is yet another instance of a cryptocurrency exchange being hacked. They're not foolproof. They're not perfect, but this does happen every so often. I'm not telling you how to live your life, but if you have cryptocurrency and you're trading actively in cryptocurrency, please do not keep your cryptocurrency, Bitcoin or otherwise, locked in an exchange or in a wallet tied directly to the exchange. Take your money, put it on a hard drive, and separate it from the internet. That's the only sure way to keep your coins safe. There you go. Now, okay, hacker. Let's talk about this one. And I wish this came out yesterday because this is, of course, video game and, that kind of deal. But I'm kind of curious. PUBG. If you don't know what PlayerUnknown's Battleground is, then, hey, it's a very, very popular game. And it's lost some popularity, but at the same time, it's been growing more popular in China. Let's check this one out. Let's see where it's at. PUBG is now the patriotic game for peace in China, which if you've ever played PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, it's a massive 100 people drop from an airplane, land in a bunch of cities or a city, or essentially they land on a map that is covered in guns and explosives and other items used to kill everyone else that drops with you. And so it's 100 people, last man standing wins. There you go. It's a lot of fun, but at the same time, I don't know how they work it into a game for peace. Let's check this out. Following months of regulatory challenges, game publisher Tencent has pulled the blockbuster PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds out of China and replaced it with a game more in keeping with the country's socialist views. Makes sense that it would be very, very hard for a country like China, which is banning people from killing one another. And I mean that in the video game sense. Of course, every country bans, people from killing each other. But it would be very hard for a game that is all about killing everyone around you to be approved in a country like China. Now, the end of 2017 saw Tencent concede to the government requirement to tone down PUBG. Authorities said that the game was too violent and that the publisher agreed to make localized changes to provide, quote, healthy, positive, cultural, and value guidance for Chinese players. It just rubs me the wrong way in the worst way, but I digress. However, Tencent was never given approval to earn money on PUBG via in-app purchases and has chosen to shutter the game in China in favor of something that stands to generate some revenue. That replacement, here it comes. It comes in the form of Game for Peace, which got monetization approval in April. So while Game for Peace looks almost identical to PUBG, its theme is decidedly different, centering on the celebration of the Chinese Air Force. Sounds like they turned PUBG and changed a few skins, gave it a little bit of a visual update, and suddenly it is now propaganda for the Chinese Communist government. Neat. So, and the gore is gone, and the gore. So obviously when you shoot people, blood would come out. It's, I've watched it. It's honestly not at all, violent. When it comes to these kinds of things, it's really not that bad. Now, let's go ahead and continue on, saying that Reuters reports that one Weibo user said, when you shoot people, they don't bleed, and the dead get up and wave goodbye. Whether this will hold the same appeal remains to be seen, but it may come as some relief to hardcore PUBG players that once they update the game, they'll return to the same level that they left off. So yeah, they legitimately just took the game, changed some assets, kept the back end, kept all the underlying stuff, and just kind of added that certain level of bend the knee to the Chinese government, and we will allow you to make money again. That's, I think, why it rubs me the wrong way. It is such a horrible thing to see such blatant propaganda, and I don't think we would ever stand for something like that here, especially not in the U.S. But we're not here to debate the merits of the Chinese government. Instead, we continue on with computer and technology news, although we are quickly running out of time. How about we talk about, let's go ahead and talk about some uplifting news, and this actually kind of fits in quite nicely with our most recent review. You may notice the word Komen. That's because 10% of each sale of any product bought from the Komen lineup goes to the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation for research and awareness and things like that. Well, hey, ties in just ever so loosely into MIT research, where MIT AI model is significantly better at predicting breast cancer, which is great. Saying that the MIT researchers have invented a new AI-driven way of looking at mammograms that can help detect breast cancer in women for up to 5 years in advance. 5 years. That's huge. A deep learning model created by a team of researchers from the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, or CSAIL, and the Massachusetts General Hospital can predict, based on just a mammogram, whether a woman will develop breast cancer in the future. And unlike older methods, it works just as well on black patients as it does on white patients. So obviously, those of minorities and African Americans, they, I guess, had less data to pull from, and therefore it was less, these models were less capable of detecting that, but they showed up in this one. So the first thing they did was that they looked at over 60,000 patients' mammograms who were treated at the hospital. They were then identified the women who had breast cancer within 5 years of the screening time. With this data, they were able to create a model that took the 60,000 images, or at least multiple images, I'm sure, from each one, and said that, hey, here are the ones who developed it. Are there any similarities between those women or differences from those who did not? And out popped the other side, an artificial intelligence that could detect any kind of pattern or subtle pattern in tissue that would lead to breast cancer. So, of course, AI has the potential to help fix the racial disparity in women's healthcare. And of course, since current guidelines for breast cancer are based primarily on white populations, this can lead to a delayed detection among women of color. This has led to the severe consequence where black women are 43% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women. And on average, Hispanic, black, and Asian women develop breast cancer at an earlier age than their white counterparts. There you go. So they have a quote here from Doctor, and then we'll move on. It's particularly striking that the model performs equally as well for black and white people, which has not been the case with prior risk assessment tools. If validated and made available for widespread use, this could really improve our current strategies to estimate risk. And hey, early detection, super important, really paying attention to, any kind of heads up. Even if, it just says you have an increased risk of developing breast cancer within 5 years, and then you can start to really narrow down, maybe these people with increased risk would then have to come in every year for regular screening, really catch it as early as possible. Early detection is key. And that's what they're really focusing on. So good job, MIT, for doing that. Everyone, we only have about 5 minutes left, and this particular one, this is probably the most talked about article on the internet today. And I really, I was kind of waffling if I wanted to get into this because we touched on it before. Rather long article. We're not going to be able to get through it all, but I wanted to at least bring it up before the end here. Game studios would be banned from selling loot boxes to minors under a new bill, which, as I understand it, the lobbying arm of the video game industry has already reached out to this particular senator, and I think they've already made a change to the bill. I'm not sure if this particular article has an update on it. It at least does have the statement from the ESA. Now, the point is, game studios will be banned from selling loot boxes to minors under a new bill. And this is actually big news because loot boxes are very, very lucrative. It's a way that a lot of gaming companies have been able to make a lot of money and subsidize free-to-play games. So, on Wednesday, Senator Josh Hawley, who is a Republican from Missouri, announced that he would be introducing a bill banning manipulative design features in video games with underage audiences, including the sale of loot boxes. The legislation would, if approved, prohibit the sale of loot boxes in games targeted at children under the age of 18. Games marketed towards wider audiences could also face penalties from regulators and the Federal Trade Commission if companies knowingly allowed children to purchase these randomized crates. So, yeah, and actually he has a quote here that actually gets to the heart of the issue. Quote, social media and video games prey on user addiction, siphoning our kids' attention from the real world and extracting profits from fostering compulsive habits. No matter, and that's of course a quote from the senator, quote, no matter this business model's advantages to the tech industry, one thing is clear, there is no excuse for exploiting children through such practices. And there you go. So, let's go ahead and take a quick step back. For those of you who don't know, loot boxes in video games are generally either rewards for doing something within the game, or you can, of course, purchase them at a much quicker rate. Let's say the game will give you 10 loot boxes over the course of a couple of hours. Or if you're very impatient, then hey, you can go ahead and buy 10, 50, 100 loot boxes for the low price of $10, $20, $50. And each loot crate that you open will have a randomized assortment of in-game either cosmetics, things that make your character look different, or just in-game loot, quote unquote. Really, think of it like a slot machine. And every time you open a loot box, you pull down the lever on the slot machine, and you have the possibility of getting something, which isn't that good, but it's something, or you have the possibility of hitting the jackpot and getting something worth a lot of money. It's really compulsive. There's an element of randomness, an element of chance. Any loot box can contain something amazing. Anything can, or it could be completely, really like nothing. But at the same time, it's pulling on all the same strings that compulsive gamblers, kind of fall victim to. And it's applying that to children. Now, pay-to-win mechanics in games targeted at minors would be outlawed under this legislation. This includes progression systems that encourage people to spend money to advance through a game's content at a faster pace. Now, let's go with, and there's music. So we don't have a lot of time, but essentially the games that would be affected by this include games such as Overwatch, PUBG, FIFA, yes, the soccer game, and many games from Blizzard, Electronic Arts, Fortnite, and more. Everyone, hey, that's just about all the time we have. Looking forward to seeing where this legislation goes. Loot box are a hot topic, and I'm not sure if they're good or bad for the industry, but they are certainly prevalent within the industry. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. So obviously, if you missed any part of the show, be sure to check out computeramerica.com. We'll have show notes up after the program. And on top of that, we will have the podcast up here shortly. Tune in tomorrow. I think we're having a best of Computer America. And then on Friday, we are having the one, the only Mr. Ralph Bond. Until next time, everyone, have a great day. Stay safe. And everyone, catch you then. Bye, everyone.